So, guys, I know most of you are aware of the Boo and Alicia Kim saga that's been happening. I know it had died down for a while, but ever since Alicia came out and announced her pregnancy, well, there has been an upsurge in going over what happened with them. So, of course, Boo and Alicia, they're an age, they're an were an age gap couple, who Boo is 37 years older than Alicia, and he lives in Florida, and he got married to her in 2019, and they were living in Florida until the end of their marriage. Now, I'm just going to read over the general allegations in the petition for the dissolution of the marriage, and this was filed by Boo, the husband. Right? So, the general allegations are the action for dissolution of marriage. It says this is an action for dissolution of marriage between the petitioner or husband. It gives the given name, but I'm gonna use the social media name, which is Boo, herein after referred to as the husband, and the respondent, again not given the legal name, so I will just say Alicia, herein after referred to as the wife. So it says Boo is filing for divorce from Alicia. Now, residency and jurisdiction as to husband. So the petitioner or husband has been a resident of Florida for more than 6 months before filing this petition. So basically, they're saying Boo, because he's filing in Florida, they say that he has been a resident in Florida for more than 6 months. So marriage of the parties, and it goes to indicate that the parties were married to each other on January 27th, 2019 in Jamaica. Now, the reason for the divorce, basically, so it says irretrievably broken. So the marriage between the parties is irretrievably broken. That is the basis of the divorce. So they are at a non-military affidavit. It says neither party is in the military service of the United States or any of its allies. Then it goes to ask for minor children, and then they're saying there are no minor children born of this marriage. Now it goes on to list assets. So it says the parties have assets to be divided. The parties own together 2 YouTube channels, and the channels are Boo Lifestyle and Alicia Kim. The wife started the Alicia Kim YouTube channel before the marriage, so that means that she started the Alicia Kim YouTube channel while she was in Jamaica and before they had gotten married. And the Boo Lifestyle channel was started during the marriage. Well, that's self-explanatory. They created that channel after they got married. At the time of the parties' marriage, wife only had 1,500 subscribers on her YouTube channel. So basically, they're saying that the Alicia Kim channel, she only had 1,500 subscribers. Now, during the marriage, as a result of the parties' marital labor, the YouTube channel has grown to over 118,000 subscribers. Now, basically, Boo is attesting that when Alicia had the channel by herself, she only had 1,500 subscribers. And then once they got married, people got more interested in them as a couple. The channel grew to over 118,000 subscribers, meaning that basically he is an integral part of the success of the channel. The parties grew their YouTube channels by engaging in original content. There is a significant age gap between husband and wife. The parties have made this the centerpiece of their YouTube channel's programming. The parties also present skits, live pranks, and words of wisdom to their large YouTube following. Husband's contribution to the YouTube channels has caused the YouTube channels to be very lucrative. Without husband's contribution, wife's YouTube channel would still be struggling with her 1,500 subscribers. And that is what I just, kind of explained, is that Boo was saying, because he was now a part of the channel, and based on the content that they put out, their original content, and based on the fact that they're a significant age gap couple. Again, he is 37 years older than her. So I guess that would, spark or pique the interest of viewers to see how this age gap relationship would work, as well as, they did pranks and skits and, had words of wisdom to their following. So people would have gravitated toward them as a couple, which enabled the YouTube channel to grow to over the 118,000. So a lot of that success is contributed to Boo. The YouTube channels generate significant income. Sadly, wife has exerted total control over the YouTube channels. Wife controls all the bank accounts for the YouTube channels and refuses to add husband's name to any of these accounts. Wife is in complete control of all the email addresses associated with the YouTube channels. Wife controls all the money that flows from the YouTube channels and refuses to give husband an accounting of where the money is and how much money is in the accounts. Wife refuses to share the YouTube earnings with the husband. So basically here he's saying that, both YouTube channels, they generate a lot of income. However, Alicia had total control over both YouTube channels. So in terms of getting the revenue from the YouTube channels, she was in control of the funds. So, based on AdSense and, any revenue that was coming in from the channels, everything, basically she was in charge of where or which bank account the monies were channeled into. And, he is saying that she refused to give him an account of where the money is and how much money is in the accounts. So that is what he alleges, and that he, says the wife refuses to share the YouTube earnings with the husband. While mark you, the Alicia Kim channel was her channel before they got married. So she would have had set that up to go to her bank, whatever funds, because that was her channel in the beginning. But then since they got married now, then they had the Boo Lifestyle channel, and whatever their arrangement was, when they were setting that up, she was in charge of the money. I guess they should have discussed, how, where, why the fund, how the funds would have been allocated from the inception. But, everything, I guess, is in hindsight. Now it continues, upon information and belief, wife has secret bank accounts in the United States and Jamaica that is unknown to husband, where wife has placed marital money that belongs to both parties. Upon information and belief, wife has engaged in the practice of marital waste by wasting and dissipating money for purposes outside of marriage. So basically he's saying that, Alicia has secret bank accounts both in the US and in Jamaica. Well, I mean, she was living in Jamaica and she had recently moved to the US, so I doubt she would have closed all her Jamaican accounts by that time, and everyone knows that, they say you can't put all your eggs in one basket, so I'm sure she, kept one or more accounts in Jamaica. And then when she went to the States, she opened new account or accounts. And I guess maybe she had personal accounts and possibly joint accounts with him. So I guess if she had secret, personal secret, well, not secret, but account for herself, then he just didn't know about it. And she didn't think she should have advised him of that. The YouTube channels are worth a considerable amount of money, and the husband is entitled to his proportionate share of the worth of these YouTube channels. So basically, he wants, the earnings from both YouTube channels to be split. And because, as he indicated, that she held the purse strings basically for both YouTube channels, he's saying that he deserves his share of the YouTube channels, which that is understandable. Both of them are working on the channels, where it's both their hard work, so it is understandable that the earnings should be shared between them both. And Real Property says none. And that is the end of the divorce allegations that was filed by Boo. Right, so I did a little bit of extra research into Florida and their divorce laws, because in one of Alicia's videos, she had stated that Boo was asking for permanent alimony, and that was denied because apparently Florida does not have permanent alimony anymore. So based on my research, it says Florida divorce law, and a lot of persons I see in comments and stuff are saying that they were married, so they whatever they owned would be termed as community property. But in Florida does not is not a community property state. Florida is an equitable distribution state and not a community property state. So meaning that, while some of the states were saying, okay, your husband and wife, so everything both of you have is supposed to be split 50-50 because it's community property. No, that's not the same with Florida. It's equitable distribution. And I'm going to go some more into it. It says, this is a crucial distinction for divorce proceedings, as it means marital assets and debts are divided fairly, which does not necessarily mean equally. So where in community property, you would split it 50-50, because Florida is not a community property. It is an equitable distribution state. So the debts are divided fairly, not necessarily equally. So we look at the differences between community property versus equitable distribution, which is the law in Florida. So the principle is that for community property, the principle is all marital property is owned equally by both spouses, whereas equitable distribution is marital property is divided fairly based on a court's consideration of various factors. For community property, the division, typically all community property is split 50-50, where equitable distribution says While a 50-50 split is often a starting point, a judge can order an unequal division if the circumstances warrant it. For flexibility in the community property, the approach is more rigid based on a strict formula, again, that it would be based on the 50-50, whereas the equitable distribution says the system is flexible and allows for more individualized judgment to achieve a fair outcome. So it says in the equitable distribution process, it says in Florida, the division of property is a 3-step process, right? So 1, to categorize property, they identify all property as either marital or non-marital. The value of property. They determine the fair market value of all marital assets and liabilities. And the distribution of property is they divide the marital assets and debts between the spouses. So when you look at marital versus non-marital property, so it says before any decision can take place, the court must classify all property as either marital or non-marital. Now for marital property, assets and debts acquired during the marriage by either spouse, regardless of who holds the title or owes the debt. So that is included in what is a marital property. Again, assets and debts acquired during the marriage by either spouse, regardless of who holds the title or owes the debt. Number 2, this includes real estate, retirement accounts, vehicles, and the appreciated value of non-marital assets if the appreciation is due to marital efforts or funds. So you could look at this and say for the Alicia Kim channel, she had that before they got married, right? So the channel would be a non-marital asset. But because the channel grew and it became more profitable, then there is some aspect of marital property in it, because it says, and the value appreciates the appreciated value of non-marital assets if the appreciation is due to marital efforts or funds. So here we know that Boo would be eligible for some of the profits of both, especially, well, the Boo Lifestyle channel, definitely, because they created that after they got married, but definitely he would be entitled to some of the profits of the Alicia Kim channel. Gifts exchanged between spouses are also considered marital property, and I guess that is self-explanatory. Now, non-marital property is assets and liabilities acquired by either spouse before the marriage. So, if Boo had a house before they got married, then that is non-marital property, because that is his house, right? Inheritances and gifts from a third party, not the spouse, intended for one person during the marriage. So if someone gave one of them a gift before the marriage, so inheritances and gifts from a third party intended for one person during the marriage. So in a case of the bed situation, if Boo's sister, they gave them the bed, but then if the sister gave the bed to Boo, then that would be a non-marital property, right? It would not be a marital property. So if the sister said, here, Boo, since you're just starting out with your wife and whatever, you can take this bed. Yeah, then that would be, I guess, non-marital property. Assets and debts designated as separate through a prenuptial or postnuptial agreement. So again, if the parties sign a pre or postnup agreement, then that's considered non-marital property. However, if non-marital assets are mixed with marital funds or used for the couple's benefit, they can become subject to division through a process called commingling. Factors for unequal distribution. So while a 50-50 split is the starting point, a judge can justify an unequal division by considering factors such as the length of the marriage, each spouse's financial circumstances, contributions made by each spouse to the marriage, including non-financial contributions like homemaking and child care, any career or educational sacrifices made by one spouse to benefit the other, intentional dissipation, waste, or destruction of marital assets within the 2 years leading up to the divorce filing, the desire for a specific spouse to keep an asset like the family home for the benefit of minor children. So these are factors that are taken into consideration for unequal distribution. So say length of marriage, right? Say they went into the marriage and say Boo was worth $3 million. Alicia could not ask for half of his net worth because theirs was a short-lived marriage. So you wouldn't expect that someone who was just married just for a couple of years to get half of Boo's life savings, right? So that would be unequal distribution. The judge would only give her or him, whichever one had more money, a fraction of the earnings based on the length of their marriage. Now, if they were married for 20 years, well, then that would definitely need a 50-50 split. All right. Or, if they were married for a long time and, say Alicia stayed home to take care of kids and stuff, then they would look at that, as well as it says, they will look at what each person had into, the spouse's financial circumstances into the marriage. So for Alicia, who had recently moved to Florida, so she basically didn't have a work history as yet in Florida, right? However, Boo had decades of working, so he would or should have been more financially stable in Florida. So that would mean that, they would look at that aspect of the marriage in determining the 50-50 split. So avoiding a court decision. Spouses have the option to bypass a judge's decision regarding asset division. So by two ways. So there is a settlement agreement where couples can create a legally binding contract detailing how their assets and debts will be divided. A judge must still approve the agreement before it becomes part of the final divorce decree. And second is a mediation where a neutral third-party mediator can help spouses negotiate a settlement. Now, Boo and Alicia, they went through mediation, so their divorce, it was settled through mediation. So I will do another video on the final outcome of their divorce proceedings. So thank you for listening, guys, and I hope this sheds some light on the filing for divorce. by Boo, which was the second time he was filing for divorce from Alicia. So the first one, they had scrapped it, but then the second one, they went through with their divorce. So just to give a little bit more clarity on Boo filing for divorce from Alicia. All right. Please remember to like, share, and subscribe to this channel. And I will be putting out another video based on the final divorce information that they went through mediation. Catch you next time.